Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's May 28th in the year of our Lord 2020, and we're on episode 40 of Transition.
Yeah, and we're kind of fired up this morning. So
Yeah, I mean, I have all sorts of feelings.
I guess we should introduce ourselves first.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Mark Van Steenwyk. I'm the director for the Center for Prophetic Imagination here in Minneapolis.
And I'm Daniel Wolpert. I direct MICA, Minnesota Institute of Contemplation and Healing. Yeah, in Minneapolis, there's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Yeah, and I want to maybe I don't need to make this disclaimer, but it's important to me. Like, we're two white dudes, middle-aged white dudes. So I think our rage and frustration is not the same as the rage and frustration of the Black community and other people who experience the boot of the carceral state. But we're frustrated, and we'll speak from our own perspective of frustration and what we see. And so that's a disclaimer. Like, we're not trying to explain what other people are thinking and feeling, but how we're thinking and feeling.
Yeah. We got enough explaining for ourselves to do.
Yeah.
We don't need to explain for anybody else.
That's right.
Just if you're also interested in some more stuff, both Mark and I are prolific Facebook posters. Mark was down at the site of the 3rd Precinct last night. I was down there at 6:30 this morning, and so we've got a bunch of videos to watch and share and take a look at, as well as this here. So
I left around 12:30, so there's a 6-hour gap where things intensified.
Right.
I'm going back today to see what it looks like, but
yeah,
it was intense.
Yeah.
I keep telling people this just because you always hear from outside, like especially the media, how dangerous and thuggish these protests are, and it always feels weirdly polite.
Yeah,
there's anger towards the cops, but every time you bump into people, which is even more intense now with the pandemic, but and then almost every time someone's like, "Oops, my bad, sorry," or "Ope," which is a Minnesotan way of saying the same thing, and people are neighborly, even when there's looting going on. It's polite looting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the most dangerous people there are the police.
Yes.
I think that's something that we need to be very, very clear about. The most dangerous people there are the police.
Yeah.
From the get-go, starting with the very peaceful, very beautiful march on, what was that, Tuesday night? Yeah, I don't even know what day it is. 20,000 people marching. Very peaceful, very nice, very powerful. From the get-go, the police have approached this with more violence, right? I mean, it started with police violence.
They're willfully escalating things. People don't get that.
Yeah. And now they're approaching it with even more violence. And in fact, even to the degree where, so there are some people here, big name activists, right, who have the mayor's phone number on their cell phone, who, called the mayor last night, and the mayor claimed, "I'm going to order the police snipers off the roof. I'm going to order them to stop shooting rubber bullets randomly in the crowd." That was a blatant lie.
It's a lie. That did not happen. My friend, I was with we were there till 12:30. My friend, who I'm not going to name, was shot in the arm with a rubber bullet. We weren't even in the thick of it. They were just randomly tagging and shooting people. Tear gas everywhere. I got tear gas in my face, indirectly, but it was enough to take me out for 5-10 minutes. And it was kind of just general, it was not focused and tactical.
No, not at all. And that started at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, right? I mean, that had been going on nonstop for hours. And again, for those of you who are out of town, you are going to read headlines like "Minneapolis is burning."
Minneapolis under siege from angry protesters.
Yeah. All of those headlines are complete bullshit, right? So when your friend talks to you about that, you could say, you don't need to swear if you don't want to, but
you can say bull hooey.
That's complete nonsense. There are a few fires in some businesses and one residential building that I saw this morning.
That was the apartment building.
Well, there's a smaller, no, the apartment building that was under construction has completely burned down by now. There's a small apartment building, few buildings from the library down Lake Street that was burning this morning. The rest of Minneapolis is fine. And again, what is frustrating to me about this, right? And I'm beyond middle age. I'm almost getting to be old age.
I was being kind when I called you middle age.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Unicorn. I've been in these, I've been seeing these, been in these, been part of these my whole life. Like I'm really sick of this. And what I'm really sick of is then white, comfortable people going, I don't get this. Why is this happening? What is the problem? It's like, if you don't get this, you are intentionally in denial, right? You are intentionally being ignorant. And I would hope that you would stop that. And I also, if you want this to stop, right? Like I posted a solution this morning. If all the white people that lived around Lake of the Isles, this is the super fancy, super rich part of Minneapolis, if all those people got in their nicest clothes and made little signs that said, Mayor and City Council, we are watching, and those people marched and surrounded the police stations, this stuff would stop in a second. This would stop in a second. Police would all go home. People could do their thing. The reason that this continues is that the white property class does not revolt, does not say quit.
Yeah, because the police exist for the white property class.
Yeah.
It's, there's a comment came up, is there a way to close caption this conversation? No, this is live. I don't know of any technology that work for this particular platform. I know how to do it after the fact, so I'm sorry. And Kathleen, good morning, mentions that there's a lot of unrest here in Kansas City too. Yeah, other cities, I'm not sure how far it's spreading, but I've heard other reports.
Yeah, Black Lives Matter occupied the freeway in Los Angeles yesterday, one of the freeways near downtown.
Yeah. Hey, is it okay if I read this? I want to read this little question and answer from James Baldwin about writing that I think.
Oh yeah, that's a great quote.
Because this is, Dan, we both talk about, but Dan particularly likes to talk about how there's like a level of systemic thinking that often eludes people. And this gets at it, because a lot of the white elite responses seem to be treating this as though it's just a few bad people did something, and so why are people looting now? That's irrational. This is a great response that frames it well. Someone asked him, how would you define someone who smashes in the windows of a television store and takes what he wants? And here's Baldwin's response. Before I get to that, how would you define someone who puts a cat where he is and takes all the money out of the ghetto where he makes it? Who is looting whom? Grabbing off a TV set? He doesn't really want the TV set. He's saying, screw you. It's a judgment, by the way, on the value of the TV set. He doesn't want it. He wants to let you know he's there. The question I'm trying to raise is a very serious question. The mass media, television, and all the major news agencies endlessly use the word looter. The television, you always see black hands reaching in, And so the American public concludes that these savages are trying to steal everything from us. And no one has seriously tried to get where the trouble is. After all, you're accusing a captive population who has been robbed of everything of looting. I think it's obscene.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to say who James Baldwin is for those who don't know?
one of the great writers of the 20th century, a black man who, I mean, probably the best place to start would be reading The Fire next time. Civil rights activist, but more from the pen than from the streets, I think. Although I think he dabbled in both.
Yeah, also incredible speaker.
Mhm.
There are all kinds of recordings of him. I could listen to him forever. Guy is an incredible genius. So if you have not read him or heard him, I would highly recommend it. We've got a bunch of great comments coming on, so we'll throw those up before we say more.
Patricia's co-signing on your statement about willful ignorance. Heather writes, yes, freedom is now just a matter of what we white folks can buy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Series, yes, I saw friends in LA live streaming the protest in.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I haven't really paid attention to what's happening elsewhere, but I'm eager to find out like how it's spilling over, because this feels to me, of course, we're in Minneapolis, so it will probably feel more intense, but it feels like another tipping point. And
yeah. I had a great comment from a friend of mine this morning, who is a Methodist pastor in Alabama. Said, this is so bad that even the people in Alabama thought that this killing was wrong.
Oh my gosh.
I thought that was a great comment.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the Blue Lives Matter type people recognizing that
Right.
this, I don't know why. I mean, I get kind of why this seems more egregious or obvious, but it's not that much more obvious. So I'm wondering what it is about this that's causing even racist people to think, oh, I went too far.
Right.
Christian writes, I've been seeing a lot of white people whining about property destruction.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and Chris Rock, in his latest comedy special, has a really hilarious, brilliant take on all of this. Where basically he talks about the fact that the moment when you start to like the police is the moment when you own property. He said, so I've got this, he said, so I've got a great solution to crime. You want to stop crime, you want to stop rioters, give everybody a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's talking about there, right, is exactly what James Baldwin was talking about in much more eloquent, different style, not more eloquent, just a different style, right? Is that the folks that finally react in this way are people who have lived a lifetime of hopelessness. Right? And this is one of the things I said in the video this morning. You have to think about a life where you enter a school that has no resources, where it's clear that that school is only there to prepare you for prison, where you're told you have no job possibility, where you're told horrible things about yourself, where you're dumped a lifetime of trauma on top of, where you know that every time you go out the door, the police can kill you with no consequence. And if we are weighing those kinds of lives, of which there are millions, right, against somebody stole a TV set, and you're mad at the TV set, and you're not mad at the other thing, you are upside down as a human being right now. You are confused.
Yeah, and I get it. Having Target gutted and Cub on fire, all these
sucks.
It sucks. I mean, no one's saying it doesn't suck,
Right.
and no one's saying like, "Yay, this is just unmitigated good." It's messy, but it's what happens. And so we focus on this and call this violent, but we don't call the general carceral state day to day, even when there isn't someone being murdered by the police. If we don't recognize the deep violence of that, but see the violence of burning a Cub Foods, then I think we're not seeing reality.
No. And again, that's the thing about the system thinking. And yeah, I mean, I've just been kind of hammering away on this because it just seems like between the pandemic and now this, and this is another example, right? We isolate an act and a group of people as an individual thing, and we judge and assess that individual thing,
right.
and we moralize about that individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire system that has created this thing is like invisible to us. It's almost like this, shadow walkers or something, that we just are not willing to be aware of, and willing to acknowledge, that we are a part of, right? We who are of the dominant class and culture, we are a part of maintaining this.
Yeah, this isn't just about 4 police officers.
No.
This is about a system. And I'm still seeing it's like, it still astonishes me when progressive people who I think have had every opportunity to know better say, we just need to get rid of some of these bad cops.
Right.
Okay, then I have a great way to get rid of all the bad cops. Abolish the fucking police. That would be, and hopefully we're hoping to get someone from one of the local groups that's a police abolition group on, hopefully this week, maybe next, to talk about that perspective, which I know is not mainstream enough yet. But here's some comments I'm going to throw up.
Let's just throw up some comments.
This is a great way of framing it. A black activist friend, Patricia writes, a black activist friend filming the destruction this morning said it is an out-picturing of the inner pain of racism.
Right.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
Right. Carol writes, the cops involved have a long records of violence.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that killed this guy has been involved in, I think, 3 or 4 other murders. Yeah, and again, this whole thing about good cops, I'm sorry. The head of the police union of the Minnesota Police Department is an avowed racist, has ties to white supremacist clubs.
They're talking about Bob Kroll?
Yeah. The union head, the police union head, has been involved in multiple assaults on black people throughout his entire life and career. That actually, there have been payments. He has had to pay money for restitution, families for this. And the Minneapolis Police Department, they elect him, right? He's not an appointed official. He's not elected by the people. He's elected by the cops. Over and over and over again. And so I'm sorry, if he's the head of your union, there are no good cops in that department, because that is obscene that he has that job and that he maintains that job. And throughout all of these different things, he has done nothing but support the police department, 100%. So again, the good apple, bad apple individual thing is a completely spurious discussion that does not take into account what is really going on on our societal level. Let's throw up a few more comments here.
Yeah, so Patricia writes, like, you have closed captions. If you could share how that works, that'd be great. Because I don't know how to do closed captioning for this. That might help a lot of people. We want to make this as accessible as possible. This is a great comment from Angel. The myth of policing. We can't possibly be accountable on our own for our actions. We need a big brother that knows what's good for us. And yes, there are good humans that are cops, but the very premise of the police is to defend the status quo, nothing else. This is like my favorite little one-liner that I like to yank out is, fuck the police, love the police officer. Like, I recognize there are individual good-hearted people that become police officers, but honestly, to me, the way to be a good cop is to quit.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's possible to be a good person who becomes president, but the way to be, if you're a really good president, you'll get impeached right away.
Yeah, and again, the placing this all within the context of the pandemic, I think is also really important, right? Because that is also the systemic reality, right? So again, we have been interacting with the system, the ecosystem that is our planet, in a way that has been abusive, exploitative, not very wise, not understanding biological life to be interconnected. And then we get all distressed when some bat virus has had enough and gets all up in our face and starts killing us. Right? And, and then we want to blame 5G or Bill Gates or, whatever, robot birds,
Robot birds.
whatever.
I was waiting for that one to come
Robot birds. You got to look up the robot birds. And really what all of that is this impulse to not want to pay attention to the whole, right? And especially people who are involved in faith communities. We want to talk about the whole all the time, right? The world, God loves the world. What is the system that is that we are a part of? And that's what we're really called to pay attention to and engage with. And it requires us as individuals to differentiate from the system and to make different choices.
Yeah, and since you brought up faith communities, I want to say something specifically about this Christian faith community impulse to try to sit in the middle and like say, oh, both sides have a point. I want to call that out because I've already seen stuff saying like faith leaders need to go down there and stand up for Black lives and also protect the property. Like that posture of trying to be in the middle between two forces, we need to knock that shit out. Stand with the oppressed. The police don't need your protection. Property doesn't need your protection either. Stand with the oppressed. There's certain, especially if you're particularly white religious leaders, need to get out of this kind of quasi nonviolent space of thinking that nonviolence equals standing in the middle between two opposing forces.
Yeah.
You can't be, Howard Zinn said, you can't be neutral on a moving train. You can't be neutral in this. You got to stand with people, and that it's going to infect your sense of purity and having your hands clean, to feel angry about something and take a side but just do it.
Yeah.
Jesus would have been there last night with the protesters, and Jesus was.
He was all the time.
Jesus was there,
right,
in the midst of it, and I think Jesus can handle messiness. So just embrace the messiness.
It's kind of like, and again, when we read the Gospels, we read the Bible. I think there's an act of dissociation that happens, right, where we really are not reading the intensity of what is going on there. Right. I mean, Jesus never said, Pharisees' lives matter. Jesus was making some very clear stances. He was like, lepers' lives matter. Yeah. Right. That was the stance. And he was going to take that stand. He wasn't going to say, well, there's some nice Pharisees, they kind of like some lepers, that he was like, no, the system is unjust and evil, and I'm going to stand with the lepers, and that's going to cause some trouble for me and for the system, but that's what we have to do.
Some good comments here. Do you guys have any reference of a country, region, or community that does not have police? I don't know, like off the top of my head. When we talk in the future about police abolition, hopefully we'll be able to get to some of that. I have some suspicions, but I can't say with intelligence.
Yeah.
But I do know that what we think of as policing is a modern phenomenon.
Yeah.
There's different ways of engaging in community.
Yeah. And certainly in America, policing has particular, very violent, oppressive roots, right? Basically in tracking down runaway slaves and busting unions. I mean, those are the two main roots of American policing. Mm-hmm. And so when you go to a place like Europe and you see cops walking around without guns and body armor, right? As an American, it's sort of very jarring. It's like, wow, I didn't know that police could do that. That's that's different. So so the roots of policing in our country and culture are particularly violent and oppressive.
Carol says it's becoming easier to occupy the counterculture.
Good.
I'm not exactly sure what that means. I can guess, but if
it's true, that's great.
Lucas writes, Jesus is always there. I mean, yes and no. Like, this is always the thing. Like, is God everywhere? Sure. Is God particularly present among those oppressed and crying for justice? Yes, particularly that's true. So I tend to focus on the ways in which Jesus is really showing up. And to me, just saying Jesus is everywhere kind of erodes that truth, even though it's technically true in a metaphysical sense. Yeah. Daniel writes, it is interesting to imagine what a democratic people's militia would look like in place of a state police force, accountable to the community and directly recallable by the community as well. I mean, there's all sorts of ways people have theorized this, and and it deserves a lot of attention and research, the different models that are out there, and it's not work that I've done. But something that's more of a community-led thing. But right now what we have is a domestic military force that treats people like they're the enemy.
Yeah. Well, and again, you see, this is the thing about, going back to, the rioters are bad. Okay, look, folks, nobody wants to riot. I mean, true sociopaths are unbelievably rare in the world. The average person does not want to riot, just like the average person doesn't want to leave their country with their children and travel thousands of miles and risk their lives to go to a foreign country. People behave like this because their lives are intolerable. All right. There is a reason, right, that the police can behave differently in privileged neighborhoods, because privileged people are happy and comfortable and don't feel the need to behave badly in the kinds of ways that the police react to, right? So if people are if people feel that the community is working for them, right? If they have something, if they have power, if they have agency, if they know their lives matter, we do not need to put tanks on the street corners. There is no need for that, because the vast majority of people, again, as the Dalai Lama says, people just want loving kindness, and then they pretty much generally tend to behave okay. So we need to keep coming back to that. This idea, if you see, again, this armored vehicle rolling down the street, you have to ask yourself, what is the kind of society that creates the need for that? Right?
And then if we get mad that people are throwing shit at the tank, but not the presence of the tank, then we have a moral problem.
Right.
There are many countries where police carry guns, but George's death didn't even involve a gun. That's right. He got choked out.
Yeah.
And so, just getting rid of weapons isn't there's no single solution. The getting rid of weapons, the body, all those things are mitigating the problem. But the deeper problem is is modern policing itself, which is part of a larger the carceral system. When I throw that term out there, I mean this entire punitive system of economic and physical control over the populace that starts with policing, laws that are punitive in a way that doesn't make any sense, to our prison system. It's like an entire tight system of basically corralling certain people towards dispossession and loss of power. And this is all deeply structural and embedded in our society. This is the quote of the day. I see resistance as a spiritual discipline. Amen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so, this is where this whole issue of contemplation and action, come together, right? Yeah. That, and again, if we read the stories of the Gospels, if we happen to be a follower of Jesus, if we read the stories of the Gospels from a real life intensity point of view, when Jesus comes to the temple and starts arguing with the powers that be and starts touching people who are not supposed to be touched, and where touching them is punishable by death, right? Way worse than looting the target. This is the prayerful action of resisting the powers and the principalities of the world. And that's what we're called to do. And our spiritual lives really are about giving us the courage to do that. The spiritual lives are not about us just feeling good and all groovy. Our spiritual lives are about giving us the courage to go out on the streets. That's what it's really about, and to be there in a way of a powerful witness for the change that needs to happen.
Being fully present when you're there, with your eyes open, with even some curiosity instead of judgment, and allowing yourself to feel compassionate. Last night when I was there, when I was trying to video, and people give me so much shit about my lack of skills in videotaping.
Oh yeah, I got so tired of looking at your ear and your beard on the side.
Well, it's multitasking, walking, and trying to get away from it. It's my first time trying to use the camera for that purpose. So, well, whatever. I did my best.
You did a great job.
I'm proud of it. My work, it's Emmy Award winning. But I was noticing, like, people focus on the anger. And so this is where people my whole life have accused me of being negative. And they could accuse that of being negative. People weren't there because they were just upset. They're upset because they have love. Like, people were there for love. Because they love each other, they love themselves, and they don't want harm to come to them. And when harm does come, anger builds up. Yeah. Like, so just focusing on the anger and not the love underneath it all.
Well, and also focusing on the reality that anger contains an incredible amount of intelligence.
That's true.
And we need to ask, what is the intelligence that we're seeing here?
That's right. Couple more quotes.
Close it out.
Kate writes, I watched live reporting from Minnesota until 4 a.m. I watched as a cop pointed his less lethal weapon at protesters and said, give me a reason.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Jonathan's given us some love.
Yeah, a lot of quotables in this episode.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Just give us a cut of the T-shirts you make. That's all.
Yeah.
Carol, I meant to say where police don't carry guns. That's how I understood it. Like, even without guns, police are lethal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody that's been at a protest, I've been at so many protests where the police are just provocateurs, right? My one best example, I was part of the organizing group that organized one of the protests at the nuclear power plant in Southern California. This was, God, I don't even know how many years ago. And, and one of the things, we got some walkie-talkies to be able to talk to each other what the police did was they figured out what channels we were on and just got on those channels and were provocative and were assholes the entire time.
Nice.
They didn't need to do that. What was the point of that, right? Yeah. So absolutely. The police, again, the most violent people on the streets, the most dangerous people on the streets are the cops.
That's right.
And if that's hard for you to hear, sorry, but meditate on it.
Last comment, we're way past time, but Patricia writes, my friend John Thompson asked the question, would you watch and video my death, or would you try to stop it? Look at how threatened the average citizen is by the police that they did not stop the death, not as the minutes tick by.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, well, thanks everybody. And, keep attuned to what's going on. As I said, Mark and I are posting, commenting on this all the time, as are many, many others. And if you are in Minneapolis, I would particularly encourage you to come down to the corner of 38th in Chicago, which has basically become a shrine to George, and beautiful place, very powerful. And we'll see you tomorrow. We've got a guest tomorrow. Very excited. Another person from the left coast. Methodist pastor, friend of mine, Shalom. She is going to be with us talking about some of the organizing that she is doing. They're actually mostly in Tacoma. So really looking forward to having her with us.
Yeah, and there's a comment saying that they wish they could recorded something that Dan said. These are all recorded. You can watch them after the fact, either where you see this on Facebook or the YouTube channel for the Center for Prophetic
So a couple of people have said it's hard to find. So Transmission has its own page. They're there. CPI has its own page, Center for Prophetic Imagination. They're there. Micah, Minnesota Institute of Contemplation and Healing, has its own page. They're there. Oftentimes, Mark and I will share them, so they're on our personal pages as well.
Mhm.
They're also on the CPI YouTube page. So, you know, for how many places they are, we're not getting that many views. Actually, it's a little depressing. But
when we, even if we just reach just one, it's worth it. When we close it, I'll leave up the screen that shows the links to all those places for a minute or so that you can kind of follow them there. Yeah.
all right.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.